Minnesota is no stranger to school shootings. There are two families who still find themselves in the fog of grief after losing children in the August Annunciation Church and school shooting in South Minneapolis. There's a new documentary airing on Netflix that's a portrait of 8 children who are in various parts of the country who were shot and killed in school shootings. The essence of their short lives are told in items left in their untouched bedrooms by their grieving parents.
Every day I tell her good morning, and every night I tell her good night.
I wish that we could transport all Americans to stand in one of those bedrooms for just a few minutes. We'd be a different America.
That is reporter Steve Hartman, known for his feel-good stories on CBS's Sunday Morning Show and his On the Road series. Steve Hartman's familiar to some Twin Cities TV viewers, having honed his storytelling craft at KSTP TV in the late 80s and early 90s. The documentary airing on Netflix is something he spent years working on. It's called All the Empty Rooms, and I'm really honored that Steve Hartman's with us. Thanks for taking the time.
Oh, thanks for having me.
As reporters, we parachute into all manner of horrific situations like school shootings, and we cover it intensely, and then we leave. You decided to do something different. Why is that?
You know, as you mentioned, I normally do the feel-good stories, so this is way off brand for me. But I'd done some essays at the end of the week for the CBS Evening News about school shootings, and it was kind of my job to sort of find this is going to sound strange, but find the uplifting angle, restore our faith in humanity, find something positive to come out of this. Maybe it's the hero teacher or, something else that's kind of a positive spin. And I kind of got tired of doing that. And I felt bad because I was growing numb to the tragedies. Like, they were just so many of them. I couldn't remember them all. I certainly did not remember the victims. And I felt like the whole country was also growing numb. And I wanted to shake us out of that and remind folks of that this is a problem that needs solving.
How in the world did you reach out to parents? I mean, what was their reaction? These are folks who are deeply grieving, and you're asking for them to open their doors to you.
Well, I didn't reach out to them right away. In fact, I don't think any media outlet should reach out to the victims of the surviving members of any tragedy right away. It's not the time. But as you mentioned earlier, sometimes that's what we're assigned to do, go knock on the door of somebody who just lost someone. And I refuse to do it, and I wish more reporters would refuse to do it. That said, there comes a time and a place when parents want to talk and they're ready to share. So a few months after tragedy, I would send a letter just explaining what the goal was, and that goal being to restore some empathy in the nation, because I feel like we've lost our empathy, and ask them if they would tell us about their child, and let us tell the story through the items in the room. And most, it was, this is a sanctuary. This is a sacred space, the bedroom. Sometimes even close friends and family are not allowed in that space. So understandably, most families politely declined, but a handful said yes, and the Netflix documentary focuses on those.
What was it like to walk into some of those bedrooms?
It's haunting. It's more. It's tougher to look at than a crime scene in some ways, and in some cases it looks like a crime scene because you know how kids live. Stuff is strewn on the floor. And it's just, it's their life frozen in time. And you look around the room and you can see all the evidence of how they lived their lives, what was valuable to them, what they cherished, where they'd been. And it's you see your own child's room. At least I do, because sometimes the exact same items, like that little bank that you have that you can so easily break into just by, the kid's bank. And, my kid has that too. So you see your own child. And I think that's kind of important, because I think a lot of times you see a picture of a beautiful child who died in a school shooting, and you think, oh, that's somebody else's kid. That'll never happen to me. But you look around the rooms, and I think you start to imagine it being your child. And for that reason, that's why I hope a lot of people watch this documentary, because I think we all need that wake-up call.
How were the parents to talk to?
Every time I knock on the door, and they've obviously said, come down and visit us, but every time I knock on the door, I get little butterflies in my stomach because, you never know what to say. Everything seems trite, and getting out those first words it's always hard for me. But after a while, you realize that they want you there. They're eager to tell the story. The folks we talked to, at least, welcomed us in, and we laughed and we cried, and I didn't feel like I know I wasn't, being a nuisance to them, whereas I would have been if I knocked on the door the week of the tragedy. I felt like at this point, by the time we got there, they were ready to open up and share. And the worst thing that can happen to these parents is that their child be forgotten. And so I'm very grateful that I was able to play a role in reminding America of who these children were.
Did your bosses at CBS know what you were doing all these years?
No,
No.
they do now.
Yeah, they do know.
And there's a reason for that. As you mentioned, I'm sort of the feel-good guy. That's my brand. And this is so far off brand. I was worried that they would say no. Also, in our business, you're constantly trying to fill the show with news, and everybody's focused on what's going to get on the air today. At the most forward-thinking we are is maybe next week or next month. If I said I want to work on a project that was going to be done 7 years from now, the answer would definitely be no. But if I did it on my own and didn't tell anybody, then I could ask forgiveness later.
Did you have a feeling, Steve Hartman, that this was going to turn into an actual full-fledged documentary, or did you have maybe a smaller vision for it at first?
I had a much smaller vision at first. In fact, I had very little vision. I didn't know what we would do with the pictures. And then at one point I was watching the Academy Awards, and a guy I used to work with, a guy named Josh Seftel, was nominated for an Oscar. And the next day I reached out to him and I'd say, I might have a documentary here. And my goal was to sort of turn the whole thing over to him. And he said, no, you can't do that, but I'll follow you on the rest of the journey as we finished up the project. So he followed me for the next year and documented our visits to the rooms. And he did just an amazing job. I mean, thank goodness I reached out to him, because he took the project to a whole nother level. And I feel like, I entered this kind of skeptical, like nothing is going to make people move on this issue because we're so, entrenched. But I feel what he has created, it may have a chance to make a difference, because we've been bullying each other over solutions for decades, but until we feel the weight of the problem, and I think this documentary shows the weight of the problem, I don't think we'll be able to solve the problem. And I think folks who watch will feel a weight, but I'm hoping they also, come away with some hope that this could be a good reset, a good starting place.
Now, to be clear, this is not something that you'd be shown in state legislatures necessarily as a tool to lobby. You're telling the stories of these kids.
Yeah, there's definitely, it's apolitical. There's no mention of guns in the documentary. And that's by design. This is just meant to restore some empathy and give Congress and regular folks a chance to just start over and feel the weight of the problem and want to solve the problem. I'm hoping, and we're in talks to show the film to Congress, a bipartisan group. And I think that's great. And, if maybe two people on both sides of the aisle can unite because of this documentary and what it evokes, I think it will all have been worth it.
There, of course, continues to be, sadly, school shootings. And I mentioned the Annunciation school shooting here in Minneapolis in my introduction. And I wonder, is there a place for more recent events, stories that could be told from those parents' viewpoints that you might be looking at in the future?
It's possible. Again, I will send letters to the parents of Fletcher and Harper at some point and offer for Lou and I to come and photograph the rooms, not necessarily for a story, just as a favor. Because when we were done shooting the rooms, we put the pictures of each child into their own little photo book, so the parents have the pictures of the room, and hopefully allow them to one day, move past the room. Because for a lot of these parents, the room, it's all in dealing with the room, it's like an albatross that hangs over them. It brings comfort, but it's also a source of pain. They don't know what to do with it. And so I think by documenting the rooms, maybe, and I know in one case, there was one family that after we documented it and sent them the photo book, that they were finally able to pack it up, and they wanted to move, and they were able to move. So I don't know if I'll ever do any more stories with it, but the mission will carry on.
Do you feel like you've been changed because of this work?
Yeah, I'm not numb anymore. There have been a few school shootings, just even since the documentary has come out, or since we finished the documentary. And anytime I hear of it, it's not a name and a number anymore. It's more my child, and that may sound like it's a painful thing to go through, but it's really not. I like having opened myself up to that sadness, because I think it's the beginning of a solution. But two, I feel like I owe it to the parents to feel a little bit of their pain. I feel like the nation owes it to the parents to feel some of the pain.
It's an extraordinary piece of work, Steve Hartman. Really, thank you for doing this work, and thanks for talking about it with us.
Thank you so much for having me.